Hello and welcome to another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing us how to set up a Maven server and also a Tomcat server. All right. Before we get into the video, my name is Oluwaseun. All right. I make videos on AWS cloud and DevOps and anything that has to do with cloud and DevOps. Basically, that's what I make videos on. So welcome again and welcome back to my channel. For those of us that are coming here for the first time, thank you for watching. Thank you for taking your time. And for those who, all right, have subscribed already and they are watching this video, thank you so much for the love and for coming back again. All right. So in today's class, in today's video, like I said, I'll be sharing with us one of the DevOps tool, all right, that is popular, that is used to, widely in the industry, and it is called Maven, Apache Maven. So basically, this is their page and this is their documentation. It's a software project and comprehension tool that is based upon the concept of what you call project update model, all right, a POM model. And then, of course, your Maven can manage projects, it can build projects for you and do reporting and all of that. So I'm just going to give us some kind of theoretical background, and then we go to the AWS console, and then we set up a Maven server and see how we can use Maven, all right, to build particularly Java project, all right. So first of all, Apache Maven, it's a tool, all right, a CLI tool that you can use to build or write your Java project. So, for example, your developers, they are done developing their Java application, all right, they have done some testing on their system, but of course, you also have to test those softwares, all right, and be sure that they will run, all right, in your production or maybe in your test environment, right? So Maven comes in as a tool that you can use to test, that you can use to package, and of course, that you can also use to compile your source code into an executable format. All right, so we're talking about formats like jar, we're talking about formats like WAR, EAR, and some other formats like that. All right, so that is what Maven does for you. So it helps you again to test, to validate, to verify, to compile or write your source code and ensure that everything will run all right in the test or in a production environment. All right, that is what Maven does for you. And in order for Maven to be able to do all of that job, all right, the compilation, the testing, the verification, the packaging of the source code is into an executable format, Maven depends upon what you call plugins, all right, and extensions. So right here you can see that I have, if I open this up and I go to this place, you will see that there are a lot of plugins, all right, that Maven already uses. So which means if you're developing an application, your application also has dependencies, right? Your application has some kind of underlying tool that it is built on top of. All right. So, for example, if I want to run Java in my EC2 environment, of course, I need to first install Java, all right, before I can run any Java application. So, if Java is not installed, I will not also be able to run Java within my environment. So, every application that you build, all right, requires some kind of dependencies to run. All right. And so Maven also requires that in order for Maven to function correctly. So when you're building an application and you want to use Maven to compile it, you want to use Maven to package it, you must know the plugins, the dependencies that that application requires in order for that application to run. And interestingly, all of these things are packaged into what you call a pom.xml file, right? All the plugins that you need in order to run your application, right, are stated in a file that is called pom.xml. All right. So let's look at what pom.xml is. Now, a pom.xml or a pom file is the fundamental unit of work in Maven. All right. So fundamental unit of work. So which means in order for Maven to build an application, all right, the dependencies, the plugins that that application requires to function, all right, must be defined inside the pom.xml. I'm going to show us the pom.xml shortly, but I just thought to give us this theoretical background so that we can understand these things, all right, a little bit better. Okay. So the pom.xml, it's an XML file that contains information about the project and configuration details used, all right, by Maven to build the project. So which means if I want to use Maven to compile my Java source code, if I want to use Maven to build, all right, my Java application, I need to specify or state inside of the pom.xml the plugins, the dependencies, and the information, all right, that Maven requires in order to build that particular application. All right, so you need to define all of that inside of your pump direction. So which means by the time you execute to Maven, maybe to validate, maybe to verify, maybe to package, Maven is going to read, all right, your pump.xml file, all right, and then if all the necessary plugins and build tools are defined correctly, then Maven is going to take all of that and build your application for you. Okay. So basically, that is what your pom.xml is about. So this is an example of a pom.xml, all right? You specify like this, project, the model version, and these lines here are very important. So the group ID, the Actified ID, the version of that application, all right, they are very important. So the Actified ID, it's just more like the name, all right, of the application. The group ID can just be your company's name, all right? Okay, so and of course it doesn't have to start with com.mycompany, right, in the reverse form like this. It can just be mycompany.app or maybe the name of your application or something, all right, but it just requires that. Okay, so that is an example, okay, of a pom.xml file. All right, now another thing that I want to talk about before we go into setting up Maven, building application with Maven and all of that is that now when you've written your pom.xml file and then your application is available, right, it's been packaged into maybe a source folder and all of that. Now, in order for you to run Maven, you also have to execute what is referred to as Maven goals, all right? Or you can also call it Maven build lifecycle or Maven or build phases, whichever name you want to call it. It can be Maven goals, it can be build phases, it can be build lifecycle, all right? Now let's look at this build life cycle. What is really, all right, this Maven build life cycle? Now, when you want to test a source code, all right, the first thing you want to do is to validate, all right, that particular source code to ensure that semantically and syntactically, all right, your code is well structured, right? Semantically and syntactically, you want to ensure that your code is well structured. Now, the pom.xml is written in XML, right? Extendable markup language. Now, all of these languages they have their format, all right? When it comes to things like maybe indentation, where you should have a comma, where you should have a space, all of those kind of stuff, all right, are required, all right, in all of these languages. So the validation is a way to check that is the comma where it should be, all right, is the bracket where it should be, and all of that. So you can run a Maven goal, all right, to validate your application. So like we have there, it says validate the project is correct and all the necessary information is available. Another Maven goal or Maven phase is also compile. So compiling the source code, all right. So the source code is there, is available, and you want to compile it, all right, into an executable format. Now, when you compile your source code, you can also test. So in that case, you're going to require that your programmers they must have written some test cases that you can use, all right, to validate and to test, all right, your application. So they call them unit testing. So all those unit testing requires some plugins, also will require some frameworks, all right, to test your application. Okay, and then packaging also is a way after you have compiled it, after you have tested it, you want to package your application, all right, in a distributed format such as .jar, .war, .ear. All right, these are distributed formats that you can ship, all right, maybe to a repository, or you can package and push it to maybe a server like a Tomcat server, and that can run, all right, those distributed format for you so that people can actually see what you have, all right, developed. All right. Now, verify says run and check on the result of integration tests to ensure quality criteria are met. So basically, verify still, is still around, checking that everything is correct, checking that, all the T's and the I's, everything is crossed, everything is dotted, all right, that everything is well structured, that there is no, let's use the word vulnerability, right? In this case, all right, that's just what the verify does. Now, install means install the package into local repository for use as dependency in other projects locally. So, which means this particular application that I have written, all right, I know that there's another application that maybe another developer is developing, and my own application will serve as a dependency, all right, for that application. So when I do Maven install, basically what happens is it packages that application and turns it into some kind of archetype, right, that another application can consume as its own dependency. Okay, that is what it does. So the other one here is deploy. So deploy is the application has been compiled, it's been tested, it's been verified, it's been packaged. All right, and now you want to push it maybe to Tomcat or you want to push it to Nexus repository as an artifact. So you have to use the Maven deploy, all right, to do that. So it says done and the build environment copies the final package to the remote repository for sharing with other developers and projects. All right. So these are the Maven faces that you have that you're most likely going to be working with. All right. And this is how you call, all right, the Maven faces or the Maven goals. All right. So MVM verify, of course, will do what we have read here. MVM clean deploy. So which means you can have two goals. You can run two goals at the same time. So this one, NVM clean, is going to clean up the target folder and then deploy, all right, that application, all right, to your Nexus repository or maybe to your Tomcat server or wherever you want to deploy it to. Now, one of the things you must also note about Maven, the build phases, is that now if you execute any of those goals, right, maybe for example, if I execute maybe MVM verify, now it's not just going to do verify, it's going to take it from the very first goal, all right, so which means it's going to execute, validate, it's going to execute, compile, it's going to execute test, it's going to execute package, and lastly, it's going to execute verify. That is how Maven works. So you start from the top level goal, all right, to the very point, all right, that you want to execute. So at whatever goal that you execute, so which means if you do, for example, here, if I do Maven clean deploy, all right, Maven clean deploy is going to run all of these phases until it gets to this point. All right, that is how Maven works. Okay, so it's not something that you can just run a particular script and then it just does the deployment. No. All right, so which means if I do Maven compile, the first thing it's going to do is to validate before compilation. If I run Maven test, the first thing it's going to do is to validate, compile, and then it will now execute the Maven test. All right, so that's how Maven works. Now, enough of all of these discussions. All right, let's go into our AWS console. Let's spin up an EC2 instance and let's set up Maven. All right, and then let's see how we can use this to build, all right, applications and deploy such applications to maybe a Tomcat server, all right, which we're going to also set up in the course, all right, of this video. All right, let's go to the console. So here I have I don't have any instance running at the moment, so I'll just go to instances and then I will launch a T2 micro instance. Yes, a T2 micro instance will work, but then you must also know that there are requirements, all right, to run your Maven application, all right? Now here, in this my repository, I'm going to put a link in the YouTube page so you can check the description, all right, for this link, so you can fork this repository, all right, and just play with it as well. And also in the README file, I've also, all right, documented a step-by-step process on how you can install Maven, Tomcat, and Nexus repository on Amazon EC2, all right, instance. So for example, prerequisite for Maven and Tomcat setup, you have to install Java. Java is a requirement, all right, for all of these applications, Nexus, Tomcat, and Maven. You need to have Java, all right, JDK installed on your system. So all of the instructions are here, so you can, all right, just check the link for the repository, fork it, and then, all right, you can also look to the README, all right, to follow, all right, and install the repository. So you can see here how you can download the Nexus repository is also stated here and all of that. So let's go over to the console and let us, all right, follow these same steps and then let's set up our Maven repository, all right, and then we'll see how we can also set up our Tomcat so that we can deploy from Maven, all right, to a Tomcat server and then view the content, of our application. All right. So let's launch an instance. Okay, so we're going to be using the Amazon Linux 2023 AMI, all right, to run this application. Okay, um, all right. So here I have my, so I'll call this Maven server. Here, so I'm sticking with the latest Amazon Linux 2023 AMI. Of course, T2 micro is fine. I'm not doing some kind of heavy build, all right, on this machine. It's just for demonstration purposes, all right, to help us understand how these things work. Okay, so let's create a new key pair, all right, to use with our Maven server and then our Tomcat server as well. So let's just call this, I'm just going to give it a name, Maven Tomcat, right? And then let me create my key pair. So it's going to download a copy for me, yes. So I'm going to save that into my class folder here. So I'm going to save that and I'm all good. All right. So for the VPC, by default, whichever region that you choose to use on AWS, all right, comes with the default VPC settings, all right, that you can make use of actually. So you don't have to necessarily set up any kind of VPC, from scratch by yourself. But of course, if you want to learn more about VPCs as well, you can also check some of our videos on YouTube. You can find some valuable, lectures on VPC, all right, on our YouTube page. Okay, so I'm just going to go with the default, all right, and then I'm going to create a new security group because I don't have one created already. So I'm going to create this one, and I'm going to call this. I'm going to call this Maven. For this Maven Tomcat. Maven Tomcat, all right, SG. All right, so I'm going to say allow, let's just say allow public access to Maven and Tomcat server. Right now, Maven is a CLI tool, so basically it's not a service that is running that requires maybe a port to be opened up on our system. All right. But Tomcat, on the other hand, is a service that is running that requires you to open up a port, all right, in order for your servers and for your team members to be able to communicate with it. Okay, so for Tomcat, you need to open up port 8080. So Tomcat is the same port as your Jenkins. And then, of course, sometimes in a production environment, or most times, you have to change that port number because if your Jenkins is on port 8080 and your Tomcat is on port 8080, obviously there's going to be some kind of overlapping. All right. So I'm going to show us how you can also change your Tomcat port, all right, maybe to port 8090 or to port 8000 or whichever port name that you know that you can use within your environment that will not cause any kind of conflict. Okay, but our Maven, on the other hand, is a CLI tool, all right, which does not require you to open up any kind of port, all right, on your system. Okay, so SSH, let's open that up. We're going to open up SSH port. And in addition to that, by the time we get into Tomcat settings, then we're going to edit our SSH settings again, all right, in order for Tomcat to be accessible, right, over the internet, right? So let's leave this as 8 gig. That's okay. That's fine. And then I'm going to launch, all right, my instance at this point. Okay. So our instance is launching. All right. Okay. So let's go back to instances. And right here we have, all right, our instance here. So it's still pending. So let's just wait a little while for this to come up. And all right, once it's up, you can refresh from here. So we're going to connect, all right, with this using the AWS EC2 Instance Connect. All right. I also did a video on how you can use the Instance Connect endpoint, all right, to connect to your instances, particularly your instances in a private subnet. So if you don't want to use a Bastion host and you just want to be able to connect your instances, all right, in a private subnet directly using some kind of tunneling, all right, method, okay, so you can use the Instance Connect endpoint. So the video is also available on the YouTube channel, so you can also take out time to watch that and see how you can also set that up your own self. Okay, so let's click on connect, and I'm just going to go with this other option, all right? And from here, I'm going to do connect, okay? So that it will just open up, all right, in my browser. Okay, so that is loading up. All right, connection has been established. So now, once our server is up, the first thing we want to do is to do a few installations. All right, we're going to install Java. We're going to install, all right, the Maven as well. So the first thing we want to install is Java. All right, and your Maven works with, all right, it can work with Java 1.8 or Java 17, whichever Java that you want to run. All right, so you can use anyone. But let's just go, all right, with Java. Um, I'm going to delete my privileges, all right, to root. And then let me clear my screen, right, to make sure that everything is, so let me increase the screen brightness, all right. So here, I'm going to install Java. Now, I'm using Amazon Linux 2023, so which means I'm going to have to use the Yum package manager, all right, to do my installations. So if I was using Debian or Ubuntu, I would have gone with the apt, all right, package manager to do that. But of course, this is Amazon Linux 2023, so you have to use the Yum package manager for your installations. Okay. Now, let me install the Java. So Yum install Java 1.8. Right, asterisk. Now, why do I have an asterisk there? Now, basically what I'm saying is I want to install Java 1.8 version, but of course I want the latest build version. All right, now when you install applications, you're going to see something like maybe version 20.10, and then you see some kind of numbers, all right, after that version. So that number is what you can call the build revision. So what I'm saying basically is I want to install Java 1.8, but I want the latest build revision to be installed. All right, so that is what I am trying to do. Now, I'm not going to provide the -y flag because I want to show us and explain something to us about dependencies and things like that. So let's just go ahead with this and press enter. Right? Now let's look at something here. Now it's asking me here to accept, all right, the default that is everything okay. I should say yes or no. Now let's look at it. Now let's scroll up a bit. Now what are we trying to install actually? We're trying to install Java 1.8, all right, and this is the package that we're trying to install. So Java 1.8 Amazon Corrector, and it's going to install this. Now, but of course, for this Java 1.8 application to run, all right, correctly on our system, it also needs to have all of these dependencies. All right, it needs to have what? All of these dependencies. Now, if you scroll down, that's a lot of dependencies. All right, and then some weak dependencies are also there that is also required. So in all, you're only installing just one application, but of course, that application comes with what? 94 packages. All right. So the same thing also with your Maven. So when you're trying to use Maven to build, all right, an application, your Maven requires dependencies, all right, that would allow Maven to build that application and make sure that the application functions as you expect. All right. So that is why, all right, dependencies are important because there's no application that is just standing on its own. All right. They require plugins, they require dependencies in order for them to function. All right. So that is exactly what Maven is doing. So that is why sometimes when you look at a pom.xml file, you're going to see a lot of plugins and a lot of dependencies. All right. Now those dependencies are not just there. Of course, they are required in order to build, in order to test, in order to package and to deploy, all right, the application that you are working on. So the same thing that you have here, I'm just installing Java and then I have to install all of this in order for my Java to function correctly. All right. So if I just install Java and I ignore all of these things, all right, Java is going to be installed, yes, but it's not going to run. It's not going to work. All right. So in order for Java to run correctly on this system, all right, to give me the result that I want, all right, I need to go ahead and install all of these dependencies. And that is why it's asking me, all right, the total size of all of these things is 571 MB. Are you okay with it? And I say yes. And I say, all right, just go ahead and install, right? So I have to install all of that packages in order for my Java to run as it should. Okay. And the same thing also, like I said, with your Maven. All right. So all of those applications are required. So you can see it's building 94 packages. So one of 24, and then it's going to install all the 94 packages, all right, in order for my Java to run correctly. Okay. So I thought to just show us that. All right, so let's just wait for this guy to finish all these installations, and then The next thing we're going to do after this installation is that you have to add your Java, all right, to your environmental variable. So you have to add it to paths, all right. For those who are using Windows, all right, there's what you call environmental variables, and then you provide, all right, the path, all right, the absolute path of where your Java is installed, all right, in your environmental variables, so that every other user that you have on the system should be able to call that service, should be able to use, should be able to invoke, all right, that particular service. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing after this installation. So installation completed. All right, let's clear our screen to make it tidy. All right, so I need to of course edit my path, all right, and then provide this Java installation in that space, all right, so that my application can run as it should run. Now I need to understand where my Java is installed, so I need to go into my root directory, all right, and then I can use the command find, right, to just find my Java installation. So I understand that my Java installation is installed in the user USR directory, all right, and then I can just find that. I'm just looking for the correct path, okay, so that I can provide that, all right, in my environmental variable, so that I can, right, I can make Java available to all my system, all my users rather. So what I'm doing here is I'm finding, all right, this Java installation, and then I'm passing that output into the add, all right, command. So what I'm saying is I just need the first three lines, all right, of this particular output. So I don't need all the output from this find. What I'm interested in the output is just the first three lines, all right. In the first three lines, I should be able to find, all right, the absolute path of where my Java is installed. So I press enter, and then right here, I can see that this is the absolute path. So I need this. I need to copy this and put it into my, all right, batch underscore profile, all right, space. So let me just copy this, and then let's go back here, all right, and then let's edit this particular script, right? Oops, that was not the correct command, so I needed to use VI, right? Okay, so now there's a VI editor, all right. The modified version is what you call Vim, right? VIM, but I'm using VI, so it's actually the same, just a little changes, all right. But the same command still works for both, all right. So here I'm going to define Java underscore home, okay, and then equals, all right, to my path. So I'm going to paste that path here, all right. So that is where my Java application can be located. All right, so I'm going to provide another one here, so which I'm going to call, and just uh, put on here, which I'm going to call path, and then equals this, all right, path column, all right. I'm going to provide all this so that Java becomes available to all my users, all right, and then column, all right, and then my Java home. Okay, all right, so that is that. And then right here, I'm going to just do some kind of export, and then I'm going to export the path, right? So let's save this, right? And then let's do something again. We just want to more like we're trying to refresh this command, enter. So now if I do echo hyphen path, right, I can see here that my Java indeed is available. So from here, if you just do Java version, right here now, so I can see that my Java version is installed. Now, I told us earlier, I said the reason I did Java 1.8 as storage is because I want the latest build version, all right? And so if you look at it here, the latest build version it gave to me was 372. All right, so that is the latest build. So you can see build 25, 372, build 7. Okay, so that was the reason why I did Java 1.8 asterisk so that I can get the latest build, all right, revision. Okay, so Java has been installed on our system. So the next thing we want to do now is to set up our Maven, all right, installation as well. Okay, so that's the next thing we want to do. I don't know, maybe it froze. So let's close this again and let's reopen it from here. All right. So now, in order for us to be able to install Maven, we have to go to the downloads folder from here, and it tells us that Maven, all right, the latest version is 3.9, all right, 3.93 is the latest version, and it requires JDK 8 or JDK 1.8 that we just used, all right, to run. And then these are the binary files. So we're going to be installing it. All right. So the next thing we want to do now is to set up, all right, our Maven server. all right, the Maven installation so that we can, um, all right, run our Maven commands and see how we can execute those Maven goals or Maven phases or life cycles, whichever one or name you want to call it. All right, so this is Maven, and then we're going to be downloading this one. All right, this is the tar.gz, all right, binary file, okay, that we're going to be using. So here, I'm going to navigate into my opt directories. All right, that's where I want to download my Maven. So if I do ls, I really do not have anything, all right, in that folder, so I can actually put something there. Now, you must understand that there are some folders in your root directory, all right, that you cannot just tamper with, all right, you can't mess with them. So folders like your bin folder, like your USR folder, like your etc folder, all right, you can't mess, all right, with those folders. All right, so for some installations like this, like Maven and the rest of them, all right, you want to use, all right, the OPT folder or the temp folder for some of those kind of installation. Or better still, you can also create your own directory in the root part and then put your installations, all right, in that space. So that way you are not, all right, all right, you're not damaging any, of the system folders. Okay, so here we're going to install Maven. So we're going to do wget. All right, so wget basically is to download something on Linux. We want to download something, and then we're using wget. Okay, so I'm going to right click on this and copy the link, and then paste the link here, and then I press and enter. Right, so you can see here that the Apache Maven got downloaded 100%. And here, if I do ls, you can see that I have my Apache Maven right in that folder. So the next thing I need to do is to extract it. I'm going to use tar, which is, of course, the file was zipped using the table, right, for the zip. So I'm going to use tar also to extract to tar hyphen x bzf. Okay, so the x there is to extract it. All right, the v there is to print whatever you're extracting on the screen, and the z, of course, indicates that is of course the gz file, and then the file, the f there indicates, all right, the file that you're trying to, all right, extract. So I press enter. All right, the extraction is happened. And then if I do ls now, I can see that I have my Apache Maven, all right, 3.93 right in that space. So here, let's remove, all right, the zip folder. Okay, so let's remove that. And then we're left with, all right, the one we have extracted. Now, if you do cd and then you go into that particular folder, all right, and you do ls, all right, you can see that there are a lot of folders there. So if I do pwd, it will show me the present working directory. So now, in order for me to run my Maven, because all right, your Maven also requires your Java to run and all that. So I need to also put this particular folder into the batch underscore profile script in order for me to be able to run Maven commands, all right, on this system. So let's see how we can achieve that as well. So I'm going to go back to that, all right, batch underscore profile script, okay, and then hi. So I'm going to create, all right, my Maven. Right, so the first one I want to do is to do M2, so Maven 2, and then hyphen home, and then equals, right, so the path to the Maven, all right, folder. So we copied that already, so let's paste it. So that's the path, so let me remove one of this one here, all right, so we only need one. So that's the path to Maven. So then the next thing you want to also add is the bin directory for your Maven. All right, so I'm going to paste that, and then this one, and then slash bin. Okay, so that's where the thing is. Now, it does not end there, so I need to also add this to the path. All right, after the Java, I need to add that to the path after the Java home. So I need to put this here, and then leave in M2. All right, let's go home. Column. All right, the last one here is what is M2. So let's save this. And then so let's do cd and let's do, all right, let's do the source like we did it the other time. Just to like refresh the script. And then so if I do echo and the path, right here, I can see that my Apache Maven is also coming up. So now even if I go to the root directory, right, and I do mvn, right, that's how you call Maven, all right, installation. and then I do version. You can see right here, it tells me that my Apache Maven is installed. This is the Maven home, all right, it's calling this from your path, all right, from the environmental variable, and it tells us the Java version that we're running, and then, all right, the operating system and all of that that we're working on. So that's how you have Maven installed on your system. All right, now again, let's look at let's clone a repository, all right, and let's see how we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this repository. All right, this repository contains the pom.xml. So if you look at it here, we are actually packaging an application. All right, and then we have all our dependencies here. This one is the JUnit for testing. And then we have the build, all right, the package managers. The Tomcat plugin is also here to deploy to Tomcat. You also need to provide a plugin, all right, to do that deployment. And then you have different plugins for packaging. So we're packaging it as a WAV file, all right. And then the version of that plugin is this. Then there's the clean plugin. Now all the Maven goals, they have their plugins. So if you look at it here, you have all the plugins specified with their respective versions. All right. Now, if I go over here, if I want to check any Maven plugin, so let's say for example, I need a Maven deploy plugin, right? So if I come here to this place, so this is the Maven repository where you can get virtually any plugin for whatever application that you're developing. All right. So if I go here, it shows me the Maven plugin and it tells me that the latest version is 3.11 and then it was developed around March 24th. So if I click on this one, all right, it will show me an example of how the deployment, how I can use it. So here I can copy this, all right, and put it in my pom.xml. So if I require it, so 3.11, all right, I can just copy all of that and put it. So if you look at it here also, I think we should have it here. So here it is. So Maven deploy plugin 3.11. So you can see that every goal that you can execute, all right, with Maven, they also have their plugins, all right, and they have, all right, their dependencies and all of that. Okay, so you can see all of that right here. So this is what we're going to be cloning this repository, and we're going to run whatever it is that we have. So like I said, I'll put a link, all right, in the YouTube description box, so you can go there, fork the repository, go through the README file to set up your own Maven and your Tomcat server as well, and then maybe your Nexus repository. You can also set it up also. But of course, we're going to have a video on Nexus repository and all right, how you can deploy from Maven to Nexus using Jenkins. We have a video coming up on that. All right. So let me just clone this. I'm cloning it as HTTP. So I'll copy it, and then I'll go back here to my right EC2 instance connect, and then I'm going to go over here to the home directory. Right. So I'm going to clone it here. So if I let's see if Git is even installed first. Let's see if Git is installed. So the git command is not there. So I can just do yum install git. You can also see also that in order to just install git, you need to have all of these dependencies installed for your git to function. So you can see there are quite a number of the applications that we use. They require a lot of dependencies in order for them to run correctly. So I'm just going to say yes and then install git. Okay. All right, installation completed. So now let's do git clone. Okay, so we want to clone that repository. So I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to press enter. All right, so clear. So ls, so my repository is cloned. So if I do cd maven, all right, and then ls, I can see all of those files right here. So if I do vi pom.xml, all right, so you can see the pom.xml file right here. So these are all the dependencies, these are the plugins. So if we are doing a deployment to Tomcat, we also need this plugin, and that's why I've put it there, because we have to deploy this thing that we're doing, all right, into Tomcat and see how Tomcat can run that application, the web page for us, all right. So we can see here that we have all the plugins, all right, installed. So for the clean, for the compiler, for the deploy, for the install, all the plugins, all right, are available. Okay, and here also we specify the packages. We want to package this particular application using the WAR format. All right, so let's out of here and let's execute some of these or a Maven command. So if I want to run the Maven command, I can do mmvm clean. And now, before you run the Maven command, you have to ensure that you are inside, all right, of the application folder. So if you can see here, inside of the Maven build website. So and my pom.xml is right inside of that folder. All right, because when you execute Maven goals, all right, it's going to look for your pom.xml. So if pom.xml is not available in the particular folder that you have, all right, the goal is not going to run. All right, so you must ensure that you are right in that folder before you execute your Maven goal. So let's just do nvm clean and let's see what happens. Right, so it's going to scan, all right, my pom.xml, so can you see, and then it's going to install all of these dependencies that are required in order to execute, okay, that particular goal. So the build was successful, so let's clear it out. Let's do ls, so everything was fine. Now if I do mvn and I do clean, let's do package, so which means I want to clean it. Now the cleaning here, all right, now first let's do mvn, right? Okay. Now it's going to scan, so look at it from pom.xml. So it's going to download all of these dependencies and plugins that are required, all right, in order to install and to, all right, work on that particular application. Now I'm going to show us something real quick. Okay. All right. So the packaging also was successful. So if you look at it here, it says packaging web app and then, all right, copying web app resources. So it was able to build it using the WAR format. So it was packaged as WAR format. Now, I did tell us earlier, I said when you're executing a Maven goal, all right, it starts from the very, all right, first goal, which is validate, all right, compile and all of that. Now, the Maven goal that I executed, all right, was MVM package, right? So if you look at it here, it was MVM package, and all right, it read my pom.xml file, all right, the packaging format specified as WAR, all right, he had to download all those dependencies and repositories. Now, if you look at it here, it started from, all right, it started from this place, all right, resources, that was where it started from, all right, and then it moved on to compile. Okay, you can see that it didn't just package it like that. You have to follow all of that build life cycle or the build processes or the build phases. All right, so it did compilation, downloaded all the dependencies needed for that, and then here you also did some testing, and then it did some test compile and then some unit testing. You can see that. So it didn't skip any of those steps. All right, it did not skip any of those steps. So now after that, it went into the packaging, which is the WAR packaging format. And then from there, all right, it now did the packaging. So you can see now that Maven indeed, it did not skip any of those steps. It went right from the very top goal, all right, up to the point, all right, where you specify. Now, if I do ls, you can see here that I have my target folder, all right, because I have packaged my application into a distributed format. So automatically Maven by itself, all right, creates the target folder by its own self, all right, it creates that. Okay, because it requires that to function. Now, if I really want to see what is in that target folder, I can execute the tree command. All right, it's not there, so we can install that using yum install, all right, tree. Okay, so I want to view it in a tree format. Okay. All right, so if I execute my tree command now, I've installed it, so it will show me in a tree format what I have available. So basically, the packaging actually took, all right, what I have in this source main web app folder, it took all of that information, all right, and packaged it, and then created a distributed format in .war. So which means if I'm deploying this to Nexus or to Tomcat, it's actually going to deploy this, all right, onto my Tomcat server, and then my Tomcat, all right, has the ability to interpret what is inside of this file and then serve me the content of that particular, all right, application. Okay, so we've seen that, right? Now, if I execute, now if you do ls, you can see the target folder. So if I execute Maven, right, clean, now, what Maven Clean does for you is now when you have made changes, all right, on your application, right, you've made some changes on the application and then you want to recompile, you want to repackage that application. Now, it is essential that you run the Maven Clean so that the previous target folder that was created that contains the previous build, all right, Maven Clean will do what? It will delete that target folder. And then by the time the application will be packaged all over again, it creates a new target folder, all right, that will contain the new, all right, changes that you have made to the application, all right, and that is what Maven Clean does, all right, for you. So if you look at it here, it tells us deleting this target folder and all that. So if I do ls, I can see that I really don't have anything right in the particular folder. Again, I don't have the target folder. Everything is just the source I have right there. All right, now we're done with Maven. So let's quickly go over and set up a Tomcat server and then see how you can connect, all right, your Tomcat to Maven so that you can deploy from Maven, all right, directly to your Tomcat server, and Tomcat can help you, all right, virtualize the content of your application. So you can see exactly what you have in that application, all right, and stuff like that. All right, so quickly, let's go over to Tomcat and let us set up a Tomcat server. So launch instance. All right, so let's call this, Tomcat server. We're still going with our Amazon line as 2023 in mind. That's still okay. Yeah, we're still going to use the same key there. Right, we're still going to use, so let's edit this. All right, so we're still going to use the same subnet. We're going to use the existing security group, and that is Maven Tomcat SG that we defined earlier. So let's launch it. Now, I told us, I said, now your Tomcat server runs on port 8080. So if you have Jenkins running in your environment and that also is running on 8080, right, you want to change, all right, that particular, um, you know, you want to change, how do I call it now? You want to change the port number, okay, so that there won't be any kind of conflict within your environment, okay? So you want to do that. All right, so Tomcat server is coming up. Let's just wait a bit for it to come up. All right, now in addition to having the Tomcat, now there's what you call settings.xml in Maven. Now, settings.xml is actually what contains the username and the password, all right, of the server that you're trying to deploy an artifact to. So if I want to deploy to Tomcat, I need to specify the username and the password of my Tomcat server so that Maven can actually export, all right, the artifact from its own local repository, all right, to my Tomcat server. All right, the same thing if you're also trying to deploy from Maven to Nexus, you need to provide the credentials for Nexus, all right, in order for you to be able to do that. Okay, so Tomcat is up, so let's quickly connect to Tomcat and let us set it up, all right, and start working with it. So I'm just going to close this for the time being, the Maven server. So let's close that and let's focus, all right, on Tomcat. And now again, for the Tomcat setup also, you can also explore this. If you look at it here, I have also the necessary instructions on how to, all right, install your Tomcat server and the things, all right, that you need to do. So for Tomcat also, we also need to set up Java. Java has to be set up in our environment, all right, because Tomcat also requires Java to run. And interestingly, both Maven and Tomcat, of course, it's by the same Apache foundation, all right. So basically, those applications are built, all right, using Java. So you have to, install Java in the environment in order to run those applications. So we're also going to follow the steps that we have here. But this time around for Tomcat, we're going to go with Java 17, all right, because we're going to be installing Tomcat 9. Let's see, Tomcat download. Okay. So we're going to be installing the Tomcat 9, all right. It's the recent version, all right. The latest here, I think, is 11, but I'm not sure that's the stable build yet. So I'm just going to go with something that is at least stable. Okay, so we're going to go with Tomcat 9. So if you click on Tomcat 9, all right, you can get the installation distribution from here. So we're going to be going with this one, Tada GZ. All right, so let's go ahead and let's sort this out. Now, already we have Java, all right, installed already on our Maven server. So I'm just going to copy the path, all right, that batch underscore profile script, all right, all the things that we copied in that particular folder. I'm just going to copy them and put them right here so that will save us some time, all right, instead of typing it all over again. Okay, so the first thing we want to do now is we want to install Java. So here we can go with Java 17, all right, so that will work. So yum install, right, Java 17, all right, I can buy. So let's install that. So that's running already. Okay, so that's working already. All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay, installation is going on. And then once the installation is done, then we can see how to, all right, so let's clear the screen. So Java is installed. So let's quickly do the find, or better still, I can just go here. All right, go to my instance. All right, connect to my Maven server all over again, and just copy the, all right, the batch underscore profile, the information that I have there. Just copy it and edit it. So that one is 1.8, this one is 17. I just have to edit that information. So in the meantime, while that is coming up, we can actually just find, sorry, we can actually just find our Java installation from this place. So Java 17. Right, let's pass in that ed command again, M3. Oops. Okay, I think I get that. So let's do cd. So let's be in the root folder. Let's call that command again. Search file. Uh, okay, so what can we do to save this? Usually, Java 17. Okay, so how do we resolve this? Let's just see. Perhaps there's something we're not doing correctly here. So let me try the asterisk. All right. So the asterisk there, I think, is what was missing. Okay. All right. So that's solved. So let's copy this. All right. So copy. All right. So let's just go into VI, this one, and then batch underscore profile. And then we press enter here. All right. Let's just quickly do the insert. Okay. So Java underscore home equals. All right, and then we paste that information right there. So here we specify the path, and we say the path is equals to this. So passing in the path as a variable, okay, so column. So we're also trying to call the home variable, so that is just basically again column, right, and then Java underscore home. All right. So here we can export the path, and then let's save that. So we can do source, just more like to refresh it. Right, so now if we do echo the path, all right, so Java actually is there. So if I do Java, all right, hyphen version, okay, so I can see now that I'm running Java 17, and then so you can see here I'm running the latest build, right, LTS, all right, the long-term support version. Okay. All right, so let's go to our opt directory and let's put in that particular folder. Okay, so Tomcat is here, so let's right click on this, copy the link, all right, and there's GW get, all right, copy it and paste the link here, and then let's download, all right, Apache Tomcat. ls Apache Tomcat is right there. Okay, so the same way we extracted Maven, so we're going to extract it the same way as well, xvzf, and then Apache, all right, so extracting that. There's really a lot of stuff in there, so okay, so extracted. Now, one thing that we also want to do now is that we want to create a link file. Now, like I told us, I said your Maven is a CLI tool that you can use to run or execute some kind of commands within your environment. On the other hand, the Tomcat is a service, all right, that runs in your system, so which means you can stop a service and you can start a service. All right, but for Maven, you don't have to stop, you don't have to start. The moment you put it in your environmental variables, anytime your system is up, you can execute Maven commands. All right, but with Tomcat, it's a service, so you have to open up the port, you have to start it, you have to stop it. So if you don't start it, it will not start. All right, so you have to do that. Now, if we go into the Apache Tomcat folder, LL, so we're going to see a lot of folders here. So inside of the bin folder, all right, so if you go into the bin, and then LL again, you'll find the startup.sh, so that's the startup script for Tomcat, and then you find the shutdown.sh. So when you want to shut down your Tomcat server, you can also shut it down from here. All right. Now, somehow it can become, something serious. You can't be navigating to the bin folder, almost every time and all that. So you can create a shortcut link, all right, to that particular folder. So let me show us how you can do that. Now again, like I told us, the documentation, everything is right here. So I'm just going to copy what I have here already, all right, in order to do that linking. So this is the link folder. So I can copy this one, all right, and then this first one here. So basically what am I doing? I am trying to create a link, all right. So I'm creating a link, okay, and then the name of the link is Tomcat Up. So Tomcat Up, I'm linking that to startup.sh, right? So I'm creating a link. So ln-s to create a link. So what I'm trying to link up to is inside this folder. So this is the absolute path, all right, of where my Tomcat startup script is present. So this is the absolute path. And then I'm creating another path inside my user local bin folder. And the name of the link is Tomcat up. So which means in any space that I have, whether I'm in the up directory, whether I'm in the root directory, if I do Tomcat up, all right, it's going to call, all right, this particular script. That is what is going to happen. So it's going to call this particular script. All right. So let's press enter. So that linking is done. So for the shutdown, I also have the script right here. So I can copy that and paste it. So which means anytime I do Tomcat shutdown, it's going to call up, all right, this shutdown.sh. All right. So if you want to verify this, you can actually go to cd, all right, user local, all right, bin, and then enter, and then it will be ls or ll. All right, you can see here that the link is actually been created. So if it is blue, it also means that the link is actually been created. So if you look at it here, also you have the L. So the L here symbolizes that this is the link file. Okay, it's a link file. So the link file is connecting to where? It's connecting to this path. So this is the absolute path for the two of them. All right. So if I do cd now and I do Tomcat up, right, it shows me that my Tomcat service has been started. Okay, so that's how to, all right, start it up. And with this one, it makes it easy. So here again, if I do Tomcat, all right, down, simply my Tomcat service is shut down. Okay? So the linking also, all right, makes it kind of easy. Okay, so since it's a shell script, all right, that linking it's kind of easy to, all right, to do that. So we have to tweak, all right, our Tomcat server a little bit. Okay, it's not like, Maven where you just install it and then once you put it in the environmental variable, you can start running your Maven commands. But for Tomcat, by default, it's not accessible, all right, via the web. Okay, so you have to edit that, all right, in order to make it available, all right, on your browser. Okay, by default, you can only access it, all right, within the same system. So basically, you can only access it using localhost. But in this case, we want to access our Tomcats, all right, publicly. So we have to modify some kind of file, all right, in that particular space. Okay, so let's go into our Tomcat folder and let us see some files we need to play with. Okay. Okay, so we are inside of it now. So let's do LL. So let's see what we have right here. Now, the first thing you want to do, let's go back to our documentation and let's see the things that we are supposed, all right, to do. Okay, let's see. Now, in order for us to be able to change the port, what I said is just the Tomcat and Jenkins, they run on port 8080, so we want to change the port to maybe 8090. And so what we need to do is to go into this particular folder, right? The Tomcat conf, and then we're going to edit this server.xml folder. So we need to edit that. So we can do, so let's do vi conf, and then we're looking for server.xml right there. Right inside. So let's scroll down and let's find, right, the connector ports. Okay. Let's scroll down. So here we have the connector. The connector here is 8080, so we want to change that to 8090. Okay. So let's save that. Right, so that is saved. So what is the next thing we need to do? All right, now, once that is done, you also need to provide your Tomcat with some usernames, all right, and password. But before then, you still have to edit the context.xml file because now the file that you have changed the ports does not mean your Tomcat is now accessible over the internet, right? You still have to edit something here so that your Tom ready. But then we also have to, all right, follow the instruction. Now, this context.xml is where we have to, we have to comment out some particular line in order for Tomcat to be accessible, all right, over the internet. So we need to find and then I name context.xml. So basically, we are finding any file that has anything, relating to content as XML. And then once we find it, we need to open them up and then comment some parts in order to make Tomcat accessible over the internet. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so let's first of all do this and then let's paste it here. All right, and then let's find it. This is going to report to us some kind of file. So we have web apps. So we have 4 of them here. All right, so I'm going to go for the first one. All right, copy, and then I'm going to do VI. All right, so I'm going to edit the first one. Okay, and then hide to edit it. Now, if you look at it here, it tells us that it's only allowing access from 127. All right, so which means it can only be accessed locally. So what I need to do here is to just comment out this particular space. Right, I can just provide this. All right, just do the comment thing. So this one, and then I go over here. Right, so I go over here and I provide the next comment. Okay? So basically, I'm commenting out that particular space. So let's save this one. Right, so that's the first one that we've done. So the second one, let's check that also, because quite a number of the files, contain that information. So you need to check them after other, and then comment out those particular spaces. Right, so let's comment it out. Here, I do the same thing. All right, so here, this, and then I can go back here. Okay. All right, so comment this one also. All right, so save this, and then pick up this third one. I think there are about 4 of them there. So basically, our target is the one, the content XML file that you can find inside of the web apps. Okay, so that's the ones we are particular about. All right. Okay, so here we go again. So this one also, we need to provide this. Okay. Enter. So we can do this, then go over here. All right. And then save this, WQ to save. And then, so the last one is what we want to do now. So let's go over here. Let's copy the last one. Copy. VI again to edit. And then here, and then press enter. All right. Okay, so here, provide that. All right, so the editing is done, but then we're not done yet. So the next thing we want to do now is that we want to provide, the user details for our Tomcat. So these users, we have to copy these things. All right, so copy. So we are defining users, username and passwords, for our system that Tomcat will use. So the question is, where do we get that particular file from? Okay, so let's go back to the OPT. Right, the OPT folder, Apache, all right, LL. Okay, so we are actually going to get that and think inside of the com folder also. Okay, so we're looking for the Tomcat user.xml. So this is the folder that we want to edit in order to achieve that. So let's go over there and let us access this. So we're going to do VI also Tomcat, all right, XML file. So let's just scroll down all the way down. So I don't want to edit anything here, so that's why I am providing my own, user details. So let's paste it here. All right, so it's been pasted. That's what we needed to do. All right, so the B key. Now what do we do? So Tomcat down. Okay, to shut it down. Oh, okay, so Tomcat was really not running. Okay, so there was no point saying that. So it says Tomcat may not be running. So let's do Tomcat up. All right, so Tomcat has been started. So you can see here it's been started already. So now let's access our Tomcat server and let's see how well we've done. Okay, so Tomcat is here. So this is the public IP. So let me paste it here. Remember, we changed the port to 8090. Okay, but then if I press and enter, it's not going to open because one more thing that we had to do, that we needed to do was to go to security group. All right, if you look at it here, we only have port 22 opened up. Okay, so we need to go to security group and open up port 8090. All right, so you can see that it's still rolling. It's not opening up because that port is not opened up. All right, on our security group, we have to open that up. Okay, so let's save the rules. Go back to your instance and let's see. Wow. So the moment we do that, all right, the page opened up. So here, our Tomcat is accessible. You can see these are public IP address with a port number. All right, Tomcat is available. So let's go to Manager Apps, which is where you're going to see all of the apps that you're going to deploy to your Tomcat. Is going to be under the Manager's app, right? So let's click on that and let's open it up. So it's going to ask us for username and password. So remember, we provided some username and password. And so let's put them there. So, all right. So it seems to got it correctly. And then you can see here that we have, all right, all of, all right, our applications. So whatever application we deploy from Maven is also going to appear right here. All right. So Tomcat is set up. We've done Maven. So now the last thing we want to do now in the video is to deploy, all right, from Maven to Tomcat and allow Tomcat to run, all right, our WER file for us. Okay, so let's go over to Maven. Let's go back to Maven. Let's go back to Maven. I think these are Maven server, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so let's do ls. All right, so these are Maven server. Now, before we run anything here, we need to edit, all right, we need to edit our pom.xml file, okay, to input some information there. Now, if you go over here to your Maven right folder. Now, under the Tomcat plugin, the URL is right here, but of course, we need to change this URL because it's not correct with the Tomcat server that we have. So this is a new URL, so we need to change that. All right, so just copy the IP, come back here, all right, change this, all right, to the correct IP that you have now, okay? So change this, all right, and then paste this. Okay, so that is done. Now, that's really all we needed to do, all right, here, and then let's save this file. Now, the next thing we need to do is, now when you install Maven on your system, Maven creates a folder that is called .m2, all right, .m2. Now, inside that .m2 folder, all the plugins, all right, when we ran Maven earlier, you know, it was downloading some plugins on our screen and all of that. Now, all of those plugins that was downloaded is actually saved inside of the .m2 folder. All right, so if I go over here and I go to my home directory and I do cd.empty, you can see here that I have a repository. Now, all those plugins and dependencies that Maven was downloading when we ran the Maven goals, all right, everything is actually being saved inside of the repository folder. Okay, now inside of this .m2, we have to also create what you call a settings.xml. Now, that settings.xml is going to contain the username and password, all right, of our Tomcat server because Maven wants to interact with Tomcat. So it's pushing something into Tomcat. Now, pushing something into Tomcat is going to require some kind of authentication and authorization. All right, so we need to provide that inside the settings.xml. Now, for some reason, the settings.xml is actually being, all right, provisioned inside of the .m2. That's where you put it, okay? Because settings.xml is not something that you push into your Git repository and then you expose your username and password for everybody to see. Okay, so for that reason, Maven creates the M2 folder. Your settings.xml folder is right there. So when you run when you run your Maven goals, right, your pom.xml and all of that, it checks So, which means if you're deploying something to any external server, all right, Maven is going to check your .m2 folder, all right, for the username and password of that particular server. All right. So, which means in this particular folder, we have to create what you call a .m2 folder. So now let me open up my notepad. I think I have a settings.xml file that we can make use of. All right, so I have one here. Okay, so right here I have my Maven, all right, server right here. So I can just delete this. Okay, so I did one from Nexus as well. We're going to see Nexus in a very video coming up on Nexus. So this is just the IP of the Tomcat. So we can just leave this as is. So what we need to do now, all right, is to copy this. So let's copy this. Let us go back to, all right, empty, and there's the VI, all right, settings, all right, settings dot XML. So we're creating the file, and then inside of that file, we're pasting, all right, the credentials of Tomcat. Now, if you look at the documentation here, we have admin, admin as password, and you also have Tomcat user and then secret as password. Okay, all those things are things you can change. So here we're using the admin, so it will still work for our deployment. So let's save this. Okay, so let's go back to right Maven folder, our repository. So Maven, so pom.xml. So let's look at it again. Pom.xml. Now, in order to build or in order to deploy, all right, to Tomcat, right, you need to now the goal is going to be different, all right, from the normal MVM deploy, all right. So you have to use what you call MVM, all right, Tomcat 7 colon deploy. That is how you deploy, all right, to Tomcat. Okay, it's something you can also look up online. So, but then if you look at it here, we don't have any target folder, so we don't have to execute the MVM clean. Okay, so here we can just do MVM, all right, Tomcat 7 as the goal we want to run, and then deploy. So we're deploying to Tomcat 7. Okay, right. So let's see. Right now, if you pay attention here, we don't have anything that was deployed here yet already. So, but let's see how this goes. All right, so the deployment is ongoing. Okay, so it's downloading some packages and some plugins that is needed, all right, to run this particular application. Okay, so you can see that everything has been downloaded from the Maven repository. Okay, everything is downloaded from the repository, right? All the things that you need to run. Oh, okay. So it's deploying the word to our Tomcat. So deploying HTTP blah 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 ATT, and so that deployment is ongoing. Wow. So we're lucky it happened just once. So if you look at it here, it tells us uploading, all right, to this particular Tomcat server, and then the uploading happened successfully, all right, and then it told us that the Tomcat's manager status code was what? 200. So HTTP 200 code means it was a success, all right, that is what it means. So our build was successful, our deployment also was successful. So the part is this one in our Tomcat. So if I go to my Tomcat and I refresh, all right, so I can see it right here. So this is the application that I just deployed to my Tomcat. So if I click on it, all right, my web server, all right, is loading. So this is actually the application that I have, all right, in that particular thing. Okay, so can you see that? So we're just a template, and then I can navigate to any of the sections, and Tomcat is running that application, all right, for me. Okay, so in the course of this video, we have looked at how to set up Maven and how to set up Tomcat, and then we've also explained Maven goals and all right, how you execute them. All right, I hope this was helpful. I hope somebody got something from this video. All right, so in the next video, we're actually going to go through how you can do this process also using Jenkins. Okay, so we're going to set up a Jenkins server and then see how you can connect your Maven server to Jenkins, all right, so that your Maven server can act as a slave, all right, to the Jenkins, and then all the build can happen on the Maven server rather than the Jenkins server. And then we can also see how Jenkins can deploy this directly to Tomcat, all right, by itself for us. Okay, so we are going to see that in the next video. All right, thank you so much once again. My name is Oluwashim. All right, thank you for joining us on this on the channel. All right, God bless you and see you some other time. Thank you.